turning to a different age matter, we begin with President Biden, set to deliver the final State of the Union address of his presidential term later tonight. But before we talk about what he might say, it's important to remember what he's already said. Take, for example, this moment. This was February 2021, shortly after taking office. It was one of Biden's first major speeches on the world stage, and he made this declaration to our allies overseas.
I speak today as President of the United States at the very start of my administration, and I'm sending a clear message to the world. America is back.
So we promised America's back. Instead, this is what we got. Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, that's when his polling numbers took a nosedive, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and Hamas's unprecedented terror attack on Israel. 1,000 Israelis brutally slaughtered, families destroyed, and Americans still, to this day at this hour, being held hostage. Here at home, American families are still battling inflation. They're extremely worried about crime, and we're now facing an unprecedented crisis on our southern border. But wait for it. This is what the White House thinks of the president's record. She said it 3 times ahead of the State of the Union tonight.
It is clear he's gotten more done in the first 3 years than most presidents have accomplished in 2 terms. But this is also a president that has gotten done more in the last 3 years than most presidents have in their 2 terms of presidency. He's done more in the last 3 years, Willie, than most presidents have been able to do in their 2 terms.
So he's done more than any president ever is the talking point, Harris, except I'm bewildered that, according to Jackie Heinrich, tonight he's not taking any executive action on the border.
Well, look, it's interesting that he has said that, and that was the reporting there, and you totally believe that. However, and I want to ask our team to pop this up, there were some members who were at that governor's White House, and I don't know if we have it. If not, I'll find it on my own. So there were some members of the governor's meeting, some Democrats and some Republicans at the White House. And a handful of Democrat governors made their way through a gaggle of their colleagues last month to tell President Joe Biden directly what they've been stressing behind the scenes, and that it's that he needs to be fighting harder. So he had heard from his own people at the governor's meeting that. Democrats told Biden that he needed to show more of the fire that was on display in a closed-door meeting with governors when Montana Governor Greg Gianforte handed him a letter demanding more action at the southern border. Biden flashed a smile, according to 2 of the governors who were standing there. And Biden said the State of the Union, smiling teasingly. So the White House now is responding to that because there were people in the room who saw that. And maybe he was just joking. We've seen him do that before. But I thought he was going to take action. But then they said he wasn't.
Right.
And then we were all kind of left hanging. Do they not know what to do? Do they not know how to flip those 94 policies just right back into place? Oh, my goodness, just pick the top 3, according to Trey Gowdy last hour. Definitely stop the catch and release.
Yeah.
Definitely start back the remain in Mexico. Right? And so he's saying that there are a top 3 that they could do right away. Take action now, ahead of the State of the Union, have something to say. But no.
Yeah, it's befuddling. Go to the border, no executive action. State of the Union, no executive action. In fact, his chief of staff told Politico Playbook that they will be blaming Republicans for this, was the reporting. So on to this, the optics of tonight. More important, I would argue, than any of the policy is reversing the age issue of the president. The Trump super PAC today is out with a brutal takedown on Biden's age. This is what you will see until November. Watch this.
We can all see Joe Biden's weakness. If Biden wins, can he even survive till 2029? The real question is, can we? Make America Great Again Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I mean, that's powerful. How do you reverse that tonight?
It's tough, and the very beginning of the ad that we didn't play was Biden just freezing on camera for what felt like an eternity. It was probably 6 or 7 seconds, but it was painful to watch. That's going to be on repeat, that type of argument for 8 months. And on the other side, it'll be January 6th for 8 months. That's going to be the very fun election season we're about to all have together and experience. I think that Republicans make a mistake setting the bar too low for President Biden tonight. He's going to be amped up. Yes, it's past his typical, maybe not bedtime, but the time that they call a lid, right? They try to schedule him based on reporting between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. for most events. This is 9 p.m. but it has all the pageantry around it. It has a room filled with people, standing ovations. He knows the stakes. So I think probably he will rise to the occasion to some extent tonight. And an easy prediction will be, if he doesn't have a giant meltdown moment, Democrats will rush to the cameras to declare it the greatest State of the Union address in recent memory. And it's put to bed all these questions. I don't think people will buy that. But if he does have a big stumble, watch out. The Democrats will be white-knuckling this thing for the full hour plus.
You make a really great point about setting the bar low, because it makes it pretty easy for him to hop over. For instance, last year, I mean, the White House aides, according to all reporting, they were thrilled. They were high-fiving each other. But still, there were these moments, Emily, where he stumbled, where he fumbled. And I wondered why there was high-fiving. And I want to revisit some of those moments. This was last year's State of the Union, 2023.
We're going to need oil for at least another decade. More timber has been burned, as I've observed from helicopters, than the entire state of Missouri. I enjoy conversion. That was part of the deal, guys. Look it up. Congress must restore the right and the...
I mean, they loved it. The White House did, but he did have some moments.
That's right. And I think I love your point where everyone is sort of collectively holding their breath and waiting for relief to be at the end. We know what we're going to get. We know that we are going to get a pushed narrative. We know that we are going to get smudged facts, and that's looking at it generously. We know that we are going to get sort of a stumbling, mumbling, outburst-like tenor that will be rewritten as confidence or anger. We're going to get a lot. Right? And the question, though, is whether the president is going to have a moment like that that could be difficult or more challenging for the Democrat Party to whitewash away. I loved Daniel Henninger, his piece today in the Wall Street Journal, where he talked about a pervasive sense of hopelessness and of hurt in the country that everyone is feeling, and that there's been a negative feedback loop, a negative cycle happening in this country that we feel every day. That's the point. We talk about the homeless that we see, the mentally ill, the violence that has permeated cities, transcending into the rural counties. Blue Lives Matter, that's been shut down, defunded police. We see people who have hopelessness. It doesn't matter if the stocks are going up and the economy is now roaring back. At the end of the day, people feel miserable right now. And what he wrote was that no speech is going to reverse that. Not even another Democratic candidate is going to reverse that. So I think when I look at tonight, this lens, I think people like Corinne Jean-Pierre, I think that it's going to somehow restore some type of huge tilted tenor here, but it's not. At the end of the day, he's just going to be Biden, and everyone is still going to be hurting on the other side.
I don't think he can really help himself very much tonight, but he could hurt himself.
He could.
Yeah.
Carly, he should acknowledge the pain of the American people. I think that would be a wise thing to do. A name that will not be mentioned tonight, according to Politico Playbook, is Trump. He will not mention Trump, but he will draw a contrast between his vision and that of Republicans. They say it will not be a campaign speech. So it seems like he's endeavoring to kind of go above and not do the blood red MAGA look, but we will see.
I do not envy the president right now for this amount of pressure to be put on him, because a lot of people are going to be watching this speech, not for what he says, but how he's going to say it. Can he get through this? And his schedule has been really light this week. He's been doing the rep, so maybe he will be able to, and everything will be okay. But keep in mind what's happening next Tuesday. Robert Hur is testifying publicly in front of Congress about the president's mental acuity, and that's March 12th, so that could also be the same day that Donald Trump gets enough delegates to become the nominee. So if there is a celebration among Democrats, it might be very short-lived. If I were writing this speech tonight, which is like way above my pay grade, there are people much smarter than me that do these things, but if I were doing it, I would tailor-make it to the Nikki Haley supporter. And that means that you cannot blame Republicans for the economy or illegal immigration, because there are voters out there that the president might be able to reach tonight, and if he does that, it could turn them away.
I think you are a lot wiser than maybe some of the people who are writing the speech, but we will see.
I want to make it short. Make it a shorter speech than usual.
Short, exactly.
Good advice.
All right, and be sure to tune in tonight for the State of the Union address. Brett Baer and Martha McCallum lead special coverage of the president's speech and the Republican response by Alabama Senator Katie Britt. It all begins at 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here on Fox News.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.